Have you ever felt the sting of someone questioning your intelligence? A word, a smirk, a careless jab that makes you feel suddenly small. It cuts deeper than most insults because it attacks the very thing you rely on to navigate the world, your mind. In that instant, your chest tightens, your thoughts scramble, and silence feels like defeat. Later, the words echo back and you wish you had answered differently. Most people either freeze and carry the wound or lash out in anger and end up proving the insulter right. Both reactions hand over power. The Stoics saw this long ago, that how you respond reveals more about your character than the insult itself. An insult to your mind is really a mirror of theirs, a confession of their own insecurity dressed as superiority. But there is another path, a way to respond without rage, without submission, a way to turn their attack into proof of your clarity. Today, we'll walk that path together. As we step into the first chapter of this journey, imagine this scene. You are in a crowded room, a voice cuts through the air, and suddenly you are the subject of a dismissive remark. A smirk follows, and the weight of 100 eyes falls on you. The attack is not on your clothes, not on your status, but on the very thing that defines you, your mind. Few things strike deeper than the suggestion that you are less intelligent than you believed yourself to be. Now pause. What happens inside? Your heart surges, your breath quickens, your tongue burns with the urge to retaliate. It feels like a wound that demands an immediate defense. And yet, the Stoics remind us, we are never harmed by what is said, only by how we choose to receive it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. His wisdom lives here." The real battlefield is not the room, not the remark, but the space within you. So instead of striking back, you turn the tables with calm precision. You look your challenger in the eye and say, "I'd love to hear your perspective on this. What am I missing?" Simple words, yet they move the earth beneath the conversation. Suddenly, the aggressor must carry the burden of proof. The attack they launched has boomeranged back into their own hands. They wanted you to shrink. Instead, you invited them to expand, and most cannot. I once watched this unfold during a marketing meeting. A colleague mocked Sarah's proposal with a sneer. "You clearly don't understand how our target demographic thinks." His voice dripped with contempt, as though he alone held the keys to wisdom. Sarah did not flinch. She did not defend herself with a long list of qualifications. She simply replied, steady and calm, "I'd love to hear your perspective on this. What am I missing about how they think?" The silence was thunder. The room leaned in. In that moment, the one who cast the insult had two choices: either reveal knowledge of real depth or expose the emptiness behind his scorn. He stumbled, muttering vague cliches about millennials and authenticity, without data, without substance. Sarah, curious and unshaken, asked gentle follow-ups. Each question revealed more of his hollowness. By the end, the contrast was clear. He looked like a man throwing dust into the wind. She stood like stone, calm, thoughtful, and undeniably intelligent. This, the Stoics would say, is true mastery. Socrates lived by it. He asked questions not to humiliate, but to reveal truth. Curiosity was his shield and his sword. He understood that when someone claims superiority without substance, the most devastating response is not anger, but inquiry, a calm invitation to demonstrate the very intelligence they claim to possess. Consider the psychology at play. When you respond this way, you refuse the bait. You don't match fire with fire. Instead, you hold up a mirror. The insulter must now face themselves. They came to take your dignity. Instead, they walk away carrying their own exposure. This move is not about being clever for its own sake. It is about embodying confidence. Only the secure mind can respond with genuine curiosity rather than defensiveness. Only the wise can stand in the storm and ask, "What truth lies here?" That is strength. Not the loud retaliation, but the stillness that unsettles. And here lies the essence of Stoic thought. Epictetus reminded his students, "We suffer not from the events themselves, but from our judgments about them. An insult is only air." If you choose to see it as evidence of another's insecurity rather than your own inadequacy, then the sting fades. If you choose to answer with calm inquiry, you do not descend into their game. You elevate the entire conversation. But let me be clear, the tone matters. Deliver this response with sarcasm, and you expose your own insecurity. Speak it with bitterness, and it becomes another fight. The power lives in sincerity. When you say, "I'd love to hear your perspective," you must mean it. You must carry the stillness of someone who actually seeks to learn. That authenticity makes the insult appear petty, unprofessional, and beneath you. Sarah didn't fight. She offered space, and in that space, his emptiness showed. Her colleague could have seized it, could have educated the room, could have turned the tide. Instead, his emptiness became visible to all. She left not just unharmed, but elevated. The Stoics taught us that wisdom can be gathered even from those who oppose us. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to seek value even in difficult people. And so this response carries a double edge. If your attacker actually holds knowledge, then you gain it. You learn, you expand. Their insult becomes your education. If they hold nothing, then their weakness is revealed. Either way, you walk out stronger. There is beauty in this kind of composure. You transform from target to examiner, from prey to the quiet conductor of the room. You are no longer the one being judged. You are the one assessing. The insult becomes a test, and the one who launched it becomes the subject. Let's return to the heart of it. When someone tries to diminish you, they are often only confessing their own fear. They attack your intelligence because they feel threatened by it. They try to steal your ground because their own footing is unsteady. To answer with curiosity is to step out of the snare. You deny them the reaction they crave, and you hold your dignity like a shield. And so, the lesson is simple, yet profound. Do not defend. Do not attack. Invite. Ask. Hold steady. In the stillness, their mask will slip. In your calmness, your strength will be revealed. This is not just a tactic for the boardroom or the classroom. It is a practice for life. The next time someone tries to undercut you, pause. Feel the surge within you. Acknowledge it, but do not act on it. Then ask, "What am I missing? Show me." If they can teach, you grow. If they cannot, you shine. As Seneca once wrote, "It is the power of the mind to be unconquerable." To choose curiosity over anger is to live those words. To turn insults into opportunities is to prove your intelligence without ever boasting of it. And when you master this first response, you will find a shift. People will see that insulting your intelligence does not wound you. It tests them. They will think twice before striking. They will sense that your calmness is not weakness, but command. Here is where we stand then. A simple phrase, spoken with composure. I'd love to hear your perspective on this. It sounds light, almost harmless. But delivered with stoic clarity, it is a mountain disguised as a pebble. It is calm that unsettles, curiosity that exposes, dignity that endures. And as this door closes, another opens. For there is a second response that does not merely invite perspective, but demands reasoning, and that is where the true test of logic begins. Moving into the second chapter of this journey, picture a long table in a boardroom, papers scattered, laptops glowing, and the heavy silence that only falls when authority has just spoken in a cutting tone. A boss leans forward, dismissing an idea with the flick of a phrase. "That's a really dumb idea. You obviously don't understand how budgets work in this industry." Every eye shifts. Everyone waits. And in that moment, the air itself seems to judge whether the man attacked will collapse or rise. Now, imagine you are that man. Your proposal has just been called stupid in front of your peers. Heat surges up your neck. 1,000 words burn on your tongue, each one demanding to defend your competence. The room feels like an arena, and your instinct tells you to fight. But this is where the Stoics whisper their counsel. Do not rush. Do not match insult with anger. Control the storm within before you attempt to calm the storm without. And so, instead of breaking, you breathe. You look at your attacker and with steady voice you say, "Help me understand your reasoning behind that. What specific aspects am I not considering?" The silence shifts. The room, once waiting for you to fight or retreat, now turns its gaze on the one who attacked. The burden moves. Suddenly, the man who cast judgment must show his cards. Marcus Aurelius taught, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." To demand reasoning is to shine a light on truth. If their words are rooted in logic, they can withstand the scrutiny. If they are born of emotion, they will crumble, and crumble they often do. I watched this unfold once with Mike, a colleague in a tense project meeting. His boss dismissed his cost-saving plan with scorn, as though swatting away a fly. The room braced for a clash, but Mike, calm as still water, asked simply, "Help me understand your reasoning behind that. Which part of the budget am I not considering?" It wasn't defiance. It wasn't submission. It was inquiry, clean, sharp, impossible to twist. His boss shifted in his seat. First vague mentions of industry standards, then a haze of the way things are done. Nothing concrete. Mike pressed again, gently. "Which standards exactly? Can you show how they apply here?" Each question tightened the circle. Each calm word stripped away the armor of authority until all that remained was the reality. The dismissal had no foundation. The insult was not truth, only emotion dressed in power. And the one humiliated was not Mike, but the man who tried to humiliate him. Here lies the brilliance of this response. It forces the insulter to prove themselves while you remain anchored in dignity. You are not the one under trial anymore, they are. You have shifted the roles without raising your voice, without losing control. Seneca urged us to examine judgments, to ensure they come from reason rather than emotion. When you respond this way, you show that you live by that law. You reveal yourself as someone governed by clarity, not impulse. But let me tell you the secret. Tone is everything. Say these words like a challenge, and you look defensive. Say them with sarcasm, and you invite war. But say them as a seeker of truth, with steady eyes and measured breath, and you become unshakable. It is not a duel, it is a dialogue, and the one who can maintain dialogue in the face of insult always holds the higher ground. Think of what this communicates to those watching. In the eyes of your peers, you are no longer the one who has been cut down. You are the one who rises above. You appear competent, mature, focused not on ego, but on solutions. You show that your mind is sharper than pride. And pride is what your insulter relies on most. The psychology here is ruthless in its simplicity. Most insults to intelligence are not born of reason. They are outbursts of insecurity, quick strikes of emotion disguised as analysis. By calmly asking for reasoning, you strip away the disguise. If reasoning exists, you gain knowledge. If it doesn't, the hollowness is laid bare for all to see. Either way, you win. Epictetus reminded us, we cannot control the actions of others, but we can control our own responses. And this is such a response. You are not controlling their insult, but you are shaping the battlefield that follows. You refuse to fight where they choose. Instead, you make them fight where they cannot win, on the ground of logic and evidence. And here's the deeper truth. This isn't just about cleverness in a meeting. It is a way of living. Life will constantly place people in your path who speak out of emotion, who try to diminish you to elevate themselves. If you spend your life reacting with anger, you will always be their puppet. But if you learn to demand reasoning, to stand calmly in the storm and ask for light, then you free yourself. You make others reveal themselves. And the truth, once revealed, cannot be hidden again. So let the next insult you face become a test. Not of your temper, but of their reasoning. Not of your worth, but of their truth. Ask them, without trembling, help me understand your reasoning. If they offer clarity, you are enriched. If they falter, their weapon turns back on them. Either way, you remain untouched. The Stoics would tell us, the world is full of judgments, but few are worth believing. Your task is not to accept them blindly, but to examine them with courage. Do not be quick to fight or quick to flee. Stand, ask, and let the weight of truth reveal itself. At this stage, the path becomes sharper. For while asking for reasoning unmasks emotion, there is another step even more devastating. The third response turns assumptions themselves into proof of your strength. And that is where we now go. Advancing to the third chapter, picture a dinner table where laughter flows easily, glasses clink, and the conversation drifts into heavy topics. The subject turns to economics, inflation, and the unseen forces that shape our daily lives. Then it happens. A voice slices through the warmth of the evening. You obviously don't know much about economics if you think that. The words are casual, but the intent is sharp. The aim is not to debate, but to silence. Not to seek truth, but to establish dominance. Now imagine you are the one spoken to. A room of strangers waits to see how you will react. Do you retreat, embarrassed, hoping the subject changes? Do you lash out, defending your credentials, spilling every fact you can muster to prove you belong? Neither path leads to strength. One leaves you diminished, the other trapped in their frame. But there is a third way, a response that turns the insult into a test. A response that reveals who truly carries depth and who only wears the mask of knowledge. You lean back slightly, your voice steady, your eyes calm. That's an interesting assumption about my knowledge level. What led you to that conclusion? You do not fight, you inquire. And suddenly the silence belongs to them, not you. The air hangs heavy because the room realizes what just happened. The spotlight has shifted. The attacker must now prove the foundation of their claim. David once used this exact response during such a dinner. His tone was curious, not combative. He looked not like a man wounded, but like a man analyzing a puzzle. The one who tried to belittle him faltered. He had no evidence, no moment in the conversation to point toward, no clear reason for assuming David's ignorance. He had made a snap judgment dressed as expertise, and now, with eyes watching, he had to admit it, or worse, stumble trying to justify it. He muttered something vague. "Well, your point about inflation just seemed simplistic." Again, David pressed, gently but firmly. "Which specific aspect seemed simplistic? I'd be interested to understand how you analyzed my reasoning." The words were sharp, but wrapped in velvet. Not angry, not sarcastic, but relentless in clarity. With each question, the hollow frame of the insult collapsed. And as it fell, David rose, not by boasting of his credentials, but by showing calm and critical thought in the face of scorn. This is the essence of Stoic power. Epictetus warned us to examine judgments before accepting them. "It is not things themselves that trouble us," he said, "but the opinions we form about them." To respond in this way is to embody that principle in real time. You do not swallow their judgment as truth. You dissect it. You ask for its roots. And in doing so, you reveal whether it was built on evidence or on air. The psychological reversal is devastating. You begin as the target, but with one question you become the examiner. They came to put you under their microscope, but now it is they who squirm beneath the lens. The roles invert, the hierarchy collapses, and the audience, the co-workers, the family, the strangers at the table see the truth emerge. The one who attacked is unprepared to defend their assumptions. The one attacked has become the calm authority. But this is not only about winning moments of public sparring. It is about living a philosophy that refuses to bow to shallow judgment. Marcus Aurelius constantly examined his own assumptions, reminding himself that every conclusion he reached must stand against reason. He wrote, "If someone is mistaken, instruct them kindly and show them their error. If you cannot, then blame yourself or no one." To follow this is to respond as David did, with clarity, not rage, with curiosity, not sarcasm, with a commitment to truth, not ego. Here's the hidden strength. This response demonstrates not just intelligence, but multiple forms of it. Critical thinking, because you question assumptions. Emotional intelligence, because you stay calm under the sting of attack. Social intelligence, because you redirect the energy of the room away from conflict and toward inquiry. Each layer reinforces the others, and the total effect is unmistakable. You look stronger, not because you shouted, but because you remained unshaken. The delivery is crucial. You must embody sincerity. If you ask with mockery, you show your wound. If you ask with hostility, you start a war. But if you ask with genuine curiosity, you turn the moment into a quiet trial of their logic. That authenticity unmasks their pettiness without you ever raising your voice. Think of the ripple effect. When people see that insulting your intelligence does not lead to an emotional reaction, but to a calm request for evidence, they learn quickly. They realize that careless attacks will not silence you, they will expose them. They learn that your mind does not panic under fire, it sharpens. This is why the Stoics called us to mastery of self above all. If you cannot master your reactions, you will always fight on ground chosen by others. But if you can remain calm, if you can meet insult with inquiry, then you shift the terrain entirely. You do not fight where they are strong, you invite them to fight where they are weak. And most people, when pressed for evidence of their own assumptions, have none to give. At this stage, let us draw the lesson clear. Do not rush to defend yourself when your intelligence is attacked. Ask instead, what led you to that conclusion? Make them show their work, and as they stumble, the truth becomes plain. Their insult was never about your lack of intelligence, it was about their lack of clarity. Here is where the balance tilts. You prove your strength not by shouting louder, but by standing still and asking questions that cannot be ignored. That stillness is power. That question is a blade sharper than any insult. And once you master this, you begin to see insults differently. No longer as wounds, but as tests. No longer as verdicts, but as opportunities to examine the minds of those who would diminish you. Some will reveal wisdom, and you will learn. Most will reveal emptiness, and you will rise. This is the transformation, from target to examiner, from insulted to elevated, from judged to judge. And as you walk away, you carry no scars, only clarity. But there is more. For while this response dismantles assumptions, the next step takes you higher still. It does not only expose weakness in logic, it reveals the patterns of behavior themselves, and that is where we must now go. Entering the fourth chapter, imagine a heated meeting where the air itself feels sharp. Voices are raised, timelines are debated, and tension hangs heavy like storm clouds before the break of thunder. In the middle of it all, one person offers an idea, only to be cut down with a knife made of words. That's stupid. You clearly don't understand how this industry works. You're too naive for decisions like this. The insult lands hard, not aimed at the idea, but at the person. Now pause here. What would you feel in that moment? The sting in your chest, the urge to defend yourself, the anger rising like a tide. Most would react from the wound, either by striking back or by retreating in silence. But both responses surrender power. One drags you into the mud with them, the other hands them victory by default. The Stoics, though, invite us to see a higher path. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about stepping back from the immediate chaos of human behavior, watching it like a philosopher observing actors on a stage. And that is exactly the power in this fourth response. Instead of wrestling with the insult, you rise above it and observe. I find it interesting when people lead with personal attacks instead of addressing the actual issue. It usually means the topic hits something important that deserves discussion. Think of the shift those words create. Suddenly, the attack is no longer about your worth. It is about their behavior. You have not defended. You have diagnosed. You have not struck back. You have studied, and in that instant, the aggressor is no longer the judge. They are the case study. Jennifer once modeled this perfectly. In that tense meeting after being dismissed as naive, she didn't argue. She didn't list her experience or raise her voice. She observed calmly. I find it interesting when people lead with personal attacks instead of addressing the issue. Then, without missing a beat, she added, I'm still interested in discussing the approach itself. What specific concerns do you have about the strategy I proposed? The room shifted immediately. The silence was electric. Everyone could see the contrast between maturity and pettiness, between emotional reaction and composed analysis. Her colleague flushed red. His aggression had been exposed, not by an insult returned, but by a mirror held up to his own behavior. The authority of the room moved. Jennifer became the one in control, not because she shouted, but because she refused to step into the mud. This is Stoicism in practice. Seneca urged us to maintain virtue regardless of how others behave toward us. He knew that dignity shines brightest in the face of insult. To analyze rather than retaliate is to treat the moment like a philosopher treats data, not as a personal wound, but as evidence of human nature. You transform an insult into an experiment. Notice the brilliance here. When you respond this way, you demonstrate multiple layers of intelligence. Intellectual, because you are identifying the true pattern at work. Emotional, because you are calm under attack. Social, because you are subtly educating everyone in the room about what they are seeing. You've moved the conversation to a meta level. You're not trapped in content. You're framing the entire interaction. Think of the psychological impact on the attacker. They expected resistance, anger, or shame. Instead, they were studied. They were named. And once behavior is named, it loses much of its hidden power. The aggressor, who moments earlier seemed strong, suddenly looks small. Everyone sees it. Everyone feels it. And you, without raising your voice, have won. But here's the key: delivery. If your tone is mocking, you lose. If your voice drips with superiority, you fall into the same trap of ego. The power lies in genuine observation, like a scientist noting a curious reaction, like a Stoic watching the world unfold. I find it interesting must sound sincere, not sarcastic. This is not about shaming, it is about clarity, and that clarity is magnetic. People begin to respect you not just for your ideas, but for your composure. They see that you cannot be dragged into petty squabbles. They see that insults bounce off you, not because you ignore them, but because you dissect them with calm precision. You elevate the entire space simply by refusing to descend. This is why Stoicism remains timeless. The world is full of noise, of personal attacks, of people who strike at others instead of engaging ideas. If you mirror their energy, you become another echo of the chaos. But if you step back, observe, and reframe, you rise. You become the anchor in the storm, the still figure everyone else measures themselves against. Here is the heart of the matter. Insults reveal far more about the speaker than about the target. By calmly naming the pattern, you expose the truth. You protect your dignity while allowing the aggressor's immaturity to reveal itself without you lifting a sword. At this stage, the lesson becomes clear. Do not meet insult with insult. Do not let yourself be baited into proving your worth to those who are not even listening. Rise above, observe, reframe, turn their attack into a lesson about communication itself. When you do, you change not just the room, but the way people remember you. Because here is the deeper truth. People will forget the details of the argument, but they will never forget the calm dignity of the one who refused to be dragged into the mud. That memory endures. That presence commands respect. And as we close this chapter, a door opens to the final response. For while analysis shows wisdom, the highest form of strength is even quieter. It is not in naming patterns or dissecting insults, but in showing such grace that the attack itself loses all power. That is the territory we now step into. At this stage, let us step into the quietest and perhaps most powerful response of all. Picture a crowded family gathering, the table heavy with food, the air alive with chatter. Then a voice cuts through the warmth. You're not smart enough to understand this family business. Stay out of financial discussions and let the adults handle it. The room falls silent. Forks pause mid-air. Eyes shift toward Maria, waiting for her to flare in anger or retreat in shame. That is the trap. Draw her into a fight or silence her into defeat. But Maria does neither. She looks at her brother with calm composure and says simply, "I appreciate you sharing your perspective." Then she turns and without hesitation asks her uncle about the discussion they'd been having. The effect is striking. Her brother was speechless, with nothing left to press against. His attempt at humiliation now looks childish, while Maria's composure elevates her in the eyes of everyone watching. The room sees who acted out of pettiness and who carried themselves with dignity. This is Stoic strength in its purest form. Seneca reminded us that character is revealed not in comfort, but in difficulty. Maria's restraint showed security that no insult could shake. She proved that true confidence doesn't need to announce itself. It simply refuses to be rattled. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best way to avenge yourself is not to be like your enemy. To meet aggression with grace is to live this wisdom." Your calmness becomes the contrast that unmasks the other's lack of it. Their hostility suddenly appears unnecessary, their words small, while your silence carries the weight of maturity. Think about what this communicates in any setting: families, friendships, workplaces. The one who can meet disrespect without being dragged into it is always remembered as the stronger presence. Colleagues, relatives, even strangers notice. They see that you are untouchable, not because insults never reach you, but because they never disturb your core. The psychology of this response is devastating. People who attack thrive on reaction. They want defensiveness, anger, retreat. When they find none of it, they are left staring at themselves. Often when the heat cools, they return with apology, because your composure forced them to recognize what their behavior really was: petty and hollow. But the delivery is key. If you lace "I appreciate you sharing your perspective" with sarcasm, it loses its power. If you speak it with bitterness, it becomes another weapon. The strength lies in sincerity. Your tone must reflect genuine calmness, even a hint of kindness. That authenticity is what makes their aggression shrink into the background. This is the highest form of confidence: to acknowledge and continue, to treat an insult as just another perspective unworthy of defense. It tells the world, "I am secure. I know who I am. I will not trade dignity for the cheap currency of reaction." And when you master this, something shifts. An insult is no battle, it is only a test of your steadiness. Each time you answer with grace, you strengthen your reputation as someone who cannot be rattled, someone who holds peace like a fortress. So let your composure be the answer. Let your calmness be the lesson. For when you acknowledge with grace, the fight itself disappears, and without a fight, you have already won. These 5 responses are more than clever lines. They are tools that protect your dignity and reveal a deeper kind of strength. When others try to diminish you, remember that their words cannot decide your worth. The Stoics reminded us that it is not the insult itself that defines you, but the way you respond. Your calmness, your ability to pause, and your choice to answer with wisdom will always speak louder than their judgment. The more you practice these responses, the more natural they become. Over time, you will notice a quiet confidence taking root, the kind that shows in your posture, your voice, and even in your silence. And when people see that you cannot be shaken, their insults lose power. You become the one who sets the tone, the one who remains steady when others falter. If this message helped you, take a moment to subscribe so you can continue to grow stronger in how you think, speak, and live. Share your own insight in the comments with a simple phrase: your choice. What would you say when someone questions your mind? Carry this lesson with you into every conversation. True intelligence is not proven by winning arguments, but by rising above them. Hold steady, respond with clarity, and step into the next challenge with courage.